Hey, Meghann Scully, and this is the Limerick Post Show. And join me now, it is Grainne O'Rourke, who's head of comms for MyMind. How are you keeping?
Very well, thanks, Meghann.
Now, of course, a very important event we're going to talk about that's happening tomorrow, Thursday. And we just want to give a bit of a warning to people, a bit of a trigger warning, as we are going to be discussing suicide. And the event tomorrow is No Suicide, Know the Signs with MyMind in association with Pieta House. So can you tell us about the event that's taking place?
Indeed, I can, Meghann. And let me first thank you very much for the opportunity to tell people about this. So MyMind has been running a series of webinars since last November, and we've been trying to offer additional supports to people who are obviously all very much affected by COVID. And this is the most recent one that we have coming up tomorrow at 11 o'clock. These are all free for anybody to join, and they run for about an hour or so, and each one of them finishes with a question and answer session. So for tomorrow now, we've teamed up with Pieta, and as you say, we are going to talk about suicide prevention. And interesting that you should have given the little alert there at the start, because this is obviously something we find people don't really want to talk about suicide. They're worried if a member of their family or a loved one or a friend may be exhibiting what they think of as suicidal tendencies. They're afraid to talk about them because they're worried that they'll encourage them to go ahead and take some terrible action. And one of the things that we'll be covering tomorrow, among lots of things, is we'll be debunking some of those myths that are associated with suicide. So there's no evidence, for example, to say that if you talk to somebody that you're worried about suicide, that this is going to increase the possibility that they'll take action. In fact, the opposite is the case. So our advice always to people, if you have some concerns about your loved one, is to talk to them about it, and we'll be giving some practical tips tomorrow on how to do that.
It sounds absolutely wonderful. I think, you did mention there, sometimes when people know someone who is suffering, they often don't know what the right thing to say is. And I think that sometimes deters them from saying anything at all. But as you just mentioned, sometimes it's just being verbal in some shape or form that can actually make a difference to someone. I guess it's maybe hearing that other voice or someone of reason saying something that might just kind of spark something else in your brain to make you realize, this is not something you want to go through with or see all the way through. And I think it is a very important event for maybe people who are suffering, and also people who, as you mentioned there, have family and friends who are suffering. And as we mentioned, it is a free event, and I have the link in the description box there below so anyone can get involved. And will there be one main speaker tomorrow, or will it be a panel, or how does it work?
Well, so how it's going to work tomorrow is that I will kick off with a few slides about MyMind. We are a mental health counselling service. We've been in business since 2006, and we are a social enterprise, which means we're a not-for-profit. We do charge for our services, but it's at an affordable rate. And we're big believers in making mental health services accessible to everybody. So, for example, you can self-refer to our services. So if you feel that, you've been a little bit off, you're a little bit down in the dumps, you might be under a lot of stress, maybe in the job or to do with stuff related to COVID, then we are the people that you can talk to. And depending on your employment status, that is how our fees are structured. So we offer discounted rates to retired people, students, unemployed, €20, €30 a session. So I'm sure you'll agree, Meghann, that that's very accessible for people. We are an early intervention service, and tomorrow we'll be joined by Pieta, who are at the other end and who specialise in suicide and suicide prevention. And as you rightly say there, it can be awfully difficult to know what is the right thing to say to somebody that is in difficulty. So tomorrow we will be talking about that and giving some practical tips on what to say. Because as you say, the majority of people do not want to take action. People don't generally want to die, and I know that might sound like very harsh language, but we need to face up to the reality of what suicide is all about. They just want the pain to go away. They want the pain to stop. And between MyMind and Pieta and lots of other services that are out there, there are loads of ways for people to get help. And that's really what we're all about. We're really about reducing the amount of unnecessary stress and suffering that's out there.
And I have to agree with you. And I'm definitely a campaigner myself for getting counselling and seeking help. And as you mentioned there, you want the pain to go away. And I think it's very important for anyone listening and watching to understand that all pain, all trauma, no matter how bad and how awful it is, all pain and trauma can be helped and can be solved in some way, shape, or form. And there is help out there, as you mentioned, with MyMind, and it's affordable too. And I think people need to remember, investing money in your mental health is the best investment you'll ever make. And I think we're very quick to go to the shops and go for retail therapy, as people say. And I know, people like to buy the latest trends, but honestly, spending money on counseling is the best money I know I've ever spent in the past. And it's something I know I will return to again, because it's always so important to, you keep up with your beauty treatments. Why shouldn't you keep up with your mental health treatments as well? It's I think really more people should be seeking professional help. And I think a lot of people need to understand it, no matter how big or small you think your problems are, there's someone there to help you with it.
Absolutely, Meghann, you're so right. And part of the difficulty is that when a person, and I've been in counselling myself, when you're in the thick of difficulties, it can be awful hard to see the wood for the trees. And you think, oh my goodness, this is never going to end. It's always going to be like this. But actually, as you rightly say, this too shall pass. Good things pass, bad things pass. And when we are in the thick of the bad things, it's so important to have people around you who know what to say to you. It's also important to be able to take self-affirming action yourself. As you say, we're very quick to do all kinds of other therapies, and actually the mental health is so important. It is the most important, I would say.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you there. And I think, one thing you mentioned there, Grainne, as well, was about COVID. And I think for a lot of people really suffered in lockdown. But I think now as well, we're starting to notice people are quite anxious about reopening again. And I'm hearing people and seeing people saying, even on social media, how they're struggling to get back out there and back out into the crowds. And I even know myself, I'm kind of trying to take baby steps to reintroduce myself into society again, because we've become so used to being on our phones and being on our own and not seeing people so casually as we can now. So I think it's very important for people to realize too that I think we're all feeling it. And when we understand that we're all going through it and that everyone's feeling a little bit on edge, that maybe we can all help each other through this patch as well.
Absolutely, and certainly we're noticing that as well. There's kind of a collective agoraphobia has set in, and people have gotten used to keeping their distance. And, and this is a good thing from a public health point of view. And we are asked to still maintain that. But I think that a gradual return to what we knew before as normal living, if somebody is finding that really difficult, then, a little bit of therapy might help. Yep. 3 or 4 chats with a good therapist to talk through, well, what's behind this? What's the anxiety about? What am I stressed about? And also to get some really practical tools, because it's all very well talking about this, that, and the other, but we all want some really practical tools that we can bring to bear so that we can get back out. Because, thankfully, with the vaccination program rolling out the way it has, it's not as, it doesn't seem, certainly we hope, to be as big a challenge, say, as it was this time last year. We didn't know what to expect. And I am, like you, Meghann, I am a big fan of talking about things. And it's much better, certainly, anytime that I have gone to therapy myself, it has been because I wanted a qualified professional who had studied in this, who had the practical experience and coaching themselves to be able to work through the thing. Because in my experience, and I've no doubt this is probably your own experience, we know what the answers are ourselves, but it can be really hard to articulate them.
Yeah.
And so that's why having a professional to work through the thing with us is so helpful. And as you say, the best investment you can possibly make.
That is absolutely. And we have to give a reminder, of course, No Suicide, No the Signs is the event that's happening tomorrow with MyMind in association with Pieta House, 11 a.m. tomorrow, Thursday. It is free. And the Eventbrite link, of course, is in the description box below. So please do get involved. Grainne O'Rourke of MyMind, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you on the Limerick Post Show and just speaking about MyMind and, of course, some of the things that we can do to look after ourselves and our mental health going forward. And, of course, I think so many people are going to benefit from that event tomorrow. And I'm sure we can keep an eye on MyMind as well for upcoming events as well.
Absolutely. And just one thing before I go, Meghann, is to say to you that we have been fortunate to secure funding from HSE and Sláinte Care for free counselling sessions for people who are affected by COVID. And that project is going to continue running until the end of September. We may get it extended, we don't know yet, but certainly if anybody feels that they would benefit, you know, you may have lost your job, you may have been bereaved, or it might just be that you're stressed out with the whole thing, because I know a lot of people are. And so get on to MyMind. The details will be there tomorrow on at the webinar, but it's mymind.org for anybody who wants to explore it further.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Grainne.